Kansas and Duke. That just ended. I'm sure people want to hear our thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm.
So Kansas wins this game. I think the final score was 69-64. And it was interesting from a number of different perspectives, not just from a prospect perspective, because there were 5 or 6 potential first-round picks on the court, but also this was Jon Scheyer's first real, test, I guess, his first real moment in the spotlight where everyone was going to be focusing on him. And I think that that's where I want to start. I thought Jon Scheyer was outstanding in this game, offensively at the very least, in terms of getting his team into processes that function. You look at his shot chart at the end of the game for Duke. I think they took like 4 mid-range shots. Everything else was at the rim or from 3. It was just the kind of shot chart that you really want to see for a guy that's getting the processes right. I thought he ran some really great actions. And then you look at just an overall strategy view of the way that they seem to attack Kansas. They just crashed the offensive glass constantly, right? They knew that they had the size mismatch on guys like KJ Adams, on Ejiofor, on whoever was at the 4 position for Kansas, such as Jalen Wilson for the majority of this game. And they just let Kyle Filipowski just run to the rim every single time and try and attack and try and create extra opportunities. And he did a great job of it. So I was very, very impressed with Jon Scheyer in this game. Ultimately, he just has a young team right now, right? He's a lot of freshmen. He has a guard in Jeremy Roach that I'm frankly not the biggest fan of at the end of the day in terms of being able to run the offense. I thought the offense ran drastically better when Tyrese Proctor was the lead guard, but Tyrese is a freshman and he's just not always going to have it, especially when you put guys like DeJuan Harris and Kevin McCullough on him. If you notice, those are the moments when Tyrese Proctor struggled. The moments where Tyrese Proctor was great at the start of the second half was when Gradey Dick was on him, and Scheyer understood how to attack that mismatch pretty drastically. So I think Jon Scheyer absolutely passed his first test as a head coach, even if Duke lost. And I think that Kansas looks like a national title contender. Even with that said, they looked awesome across the board.
Yeah, the one thing you didn't mention too that I really liked, they put Kyle Filipowski on DeJuan Harris for a little bit in the first half, just like random stuff like that I loved. Like, okay, we know DeJuan's not going to shoot, we're going to leak it in the lane, and they really started to clog things up after Kansas had a pretty massive run early, just really forcing things in transition. So I agree. Also had to get off the tweet. Freddie Prinze Jr. coaching Duke, love seeing that. But.
The crazy thing is Jon Scheyer is probably 10 years younger than Freddie Prinze Jr.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, I know, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I'm showing my age, but like more just that I'm younger than you. But like I was like a little kid going to the drive-in watching the OG live action Scooby-Doo movie when it came out. So it's like, that's forever.
That's not that bad. Like you're only like 6 years younger than me. You're not that much younger than me, first and foremost.
Oh,
but
well. Close enough.
But like I remember like She's All That. Like that's probably like the thing that's right before your time, right?
Never actually seen She's All That. I know what it's about, but never seen it.
Yeah, so like that's the age, that's the generational difference between the two of us. Okay. But no, I agree with you, man. Like I think that Jon Scheyer looked great. I think that at the end of the day though, Kansas just has more experience, more talent, and better defenders, especially on the perimeter right now. I did not think Duke's pick and roll defense was very good in this game. I think they did some interesting things, like you said, cross matching, but when you're playing 2 bigs, it's just kind of hard, especially against teams like Kansas that are putting 2 and 3 ball handlers out there at once and then able to spray the ball out to someone like Jalen Wilson, spray it out to someone like Gradey Dick. It just becomes a little bit more difficult, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think, even just looking at, you saw a lot of where they missed Tariq Whitehead, in my opinion. I think even on defense, I felt like you could see them missing him, which duh. He's a 5-star prospect, one of our favorite guys in the draft. But and even more so on offense, I think getting more of that secondary ball handling too, which, like you mentioned, they were really good at crashing the glass. But just in terms of actually running offense, like you mentioned, Tyrese had a ton of issues in the first half. And Jeremy was not all that much better either. You just saw a lot of the issues that Kansas is going to provide. And we were texting about this too. I am interested to see how we saw, especially in the game against Omaha, we saw good stuff from Ernest Udeh, But it feels like they're really going to need one more guy to click in that front court, especially when they play against more sizable front courts, because Duke really started to exploit that late. But I want to ask you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and like Uda, this is just real quick. Like, I don't think Uda played after he and Gradey Dick had that breakdown on the Mark Mitchell pick and roll play, where that led to a Mitchell dunk. So it seems pretty clear that they don't totally trust him yet. I thought Ejiofor was actually okay. Like, he played like minutes that were serviceable. But what was going to be your question?
Well, I think the biggest thing that where I'm at with Kansas, before we even talking about Gradey Dick, but like, where are you at on Jalen Wilson to start this year? Because I think there were a lot of it's tough. Like, I mean, just looking at his finishing line, obviously we know a lot deeper in box score, but 25, 10, and 5. The just overall ball control and what he can get where he wants on the court in a way that he's never really had consistently all the way together. Obviously the shot was off tonight. It's been good for the year on volume. But to be fair, like, shot was off for everybody tonight. But
it was like they were playing on an aircraft carrier or something.
Yeah. But yeah, where are you at with him? Because this has been, I mean, if for anybody who was hopeful of a Jalen Wilson breakout, like, we're seeing it.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing it from a college basketball perspective. A lot of his buckets are like bully ball buckets, right? Yep. He's getting to the rim. He's just putting his shoulder down, and he is just like kind of using that shoulder for space and then turning and just like finishing at the basket, right? Ultimately with Jalen, it comes down to the shot, right? And it's the same with Kevin McCullough, right? Kevin McCullough, it's going to come down to the shot. With Jalen, can he make consistent threes? Can he consistently just catch and shoot? Can he take them off the hop? Can he do anything off of movement whatsoever? I thought McCullough had like a couple of like corner drift plays tonight, especially in the first half, in that first 5-minute stretch, like where you kind of go, okay, this is really interesting. And I thought McCullough's game as a whole was a bit messy, but if you look at the overall stat line, it's pretty clear that he was effective. He had 12 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, a steal, did a really good job defensively. Like, that's an effective game, but obviously Jalen Wilson is just going to get the numbers here. Like, he's going to be the box score guy. Look, I've always had some interest in him, certainly, just because big wings are valued, especially big wings who can play a role defensively. I wouldn't say Jalen Wilson is like a difference maker on that end, but he's definitely not bad defensively. Mm-hmm. So I look at Jalen Wilson and think, so far, if he got drafted in the second round, that would not blow me away at all.
Yeah. No, I think I'm in the same boat with you. My bigger thing, like, obviously the shot, but I think it's more so his touch around the rim, because he had, like, I feel like a lot of his stuff he has to get on putbacks. That just by nature of being a very below the rim athlete for someone his size. And I think that's, like you're mentioning too, like, part of the reason he's not somebody I consider a massive plus on defense is because he isn't extremely long and he doesn't have the verticality to make up for it at times. So I agree. Because I have seen a lot of speculation on where Jalen's at right now, and I want to see if we're on the same boat. I think we are.
Our dear sweet friend Nikias Duncan has come in the comments and asked if we have UConn thoughts.
I have not watched UConn yet. I would like to see UConn play a good team first.
Look, I did not watch Tristan Newton tonight. I know he had a triple-double. I am generally a fan of UConn. It's just that, like, I would like them to get healthy. I mean, Jordan Hawkins got, I believe, a concussion in their first game. He only played 9 minutes. And then Andre Jackson is out currently. It's just going to be kind of a tough early stretch to get a real read on what they can be long-term. But look, we've gone 12 minutes at this point. We haven't talked about Gradey Dick. I think Gradey Dick played one of the most interesting prospect games that I can remember. In his third college game, he scored 7 straight points to essentially like close the game for Kansas and win them the game. He also was such a liability defensively at the start of the second half that Norm Roberts had to pull him off the court because John Shire and Duke was just clearly came out at halftime and said, we are going to relentlessly attack Gradey Dick with whoever he is on every single time. Early on, it was Tyrese Proctor. He hit the 2 mid-range jumpers and then hit that quick 3. Then they put him on Mark Mitchell. Mark Mitchell, they ran a ball screen where Mark Mitchell was the ball handler. That genuinely might be one of 5 times that Duke does this the entire year. And he was able to get to the rim and dunk with ease. It was just one of those things where I have no idea what to make of Gradey Dick after that game in terms of his prospects. I know that he was huge for Kansas, and I know that like he is maybe their swing guy this year now. Like if they can keep Gradey Dick on the court without getting obliterated defensively because he's the weak link, then they have a real shot to win the national title. If they don't, I think that you're going to see a lot more of the issues crop up offensively where they struggle to space the court a little bit, struggle to really initiate a lot of offense because the way Gradey Dick moves off the ball, the way he can shoot, the way he spaces the floor, you constantly have to stay connected to him. He is just a spacer unto himself for Kansas's offense. He is a gravitational force for Kansas's offense.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a lot of great things. What's interesting too is like with Gradey, I mean, I don't know how you feel about him long-term as a defensive prospect. Like I think the off-ball stuff is generally very good, especially too, like just his ability to generate deflections. I think it's going to be more like it's going to take time for him to obviously, you know, generate. He has a really high base right now, especially, you know, considering that he's only like 200 pounds at 6'7", 6'8". So,
yeah, 6'7", probably 200, I'd guess.
Yeah, at best. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we totally saw that play out. So I'm not super worried about that long term, but like you mentioned, I feel like, I mean, that stretch to close out was fantastic. And before we even get to that, it's just been like, it's the stuff that you would see watching him at Sunrise, but like the finishing package he has around the rim is unreal. Like the stuff that he'll pull out routinely. He had like in their first game against Omaha, he had like this windmill layup around the rim. He has a ton of really good stuff to protect against rim protection. Like it's just the things that he'll pull out are it's so fun to watch. But it's effective too. Like it's not just like for show. Like it's the Tony Hawk Pro Skater layup package, but it goes in and like effectively. And like you mentioned too, it's just he moves so well without the ball. He's really good at changing direction. I mean, of course, I think on one hand you can be like, well, you should have been able to see that he was going baseline with that lob, but also it's because he's good at being deceptive with his cuts and how he gets to places. Yeah. How many threes did he even take tonight? I know obviously he hit the one that was big down the stretch, but I can like
he went 1 of 4 from 3.
Okay.
Yeah, he did not take many.
Yeah, I was gonna say I want to see him continue to take more because like he's like the release point is good. It's a really quick shot. Where are you at with him as a shooter?
Do you think it's a quick shot? Because I think it actually takes him a minute to load into it. Like once he actually gets the ball up, it's quick, but I think it takes him that extra split second now to like get into it and to get his feet down. So I think that's going to be the big kind of almost swing skill for him throughout the year is can he get 3-pointers off of volume that are off of movement, right? Like not just spotting up in the corner where, you know, DeJuan Harris is spraying and ball out to him or something like that. So yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Gradey Dick. Like it's funny. Like I loved him at Sunrise and I thought he was better than Mark Mitchell. I thought he was like very clearly, you know, a one and done prospect as a first round pick coming into this year. And then I kind of got spooked because I'd heard from scouts that were at Kansas practices that were like, yeah, like, you know, it's been real hit or miss. Like some days he's really good. Some days he's not very good apparently. And, you know, it's going to be interesting early on to see where he settles in their hierarchy of players. Right. But it's very clear that he's like their number 3 guy behind. I think McCullough is probably going to end up taking more shots than he does just because McCullough can handle the ball a little bit better. He's aggressive as a slasher and driver, even if going into the trees tonight against Duke, he wasn't necessarily able to take a ton of shots at the rim. And then Jalen Wilson's obviously going to take shots as well. But, you know, I would expect Gradey Dick to get 10, 11 shots per game, something like that. And if he does that and gets 2 or 3 off of cuts per game and takes, you know, 2 off of transition opportunities on leak outs and then takes 5 threes, he probably averages pretty close to 14 points a game and we'll see where it settles. Like I think that off of this game, he will be seen as a one and done prospect, basically.
Yeah, no, he should be, honestly, with how he's playing, with how he fits. I agree. And I think it's interesting too. Like, I want to see how it looks moving forward. Just given the nature of the game tonight and how the defenses were playing, like there was not a lot of opportunity for it felt like. But in the first two games, he did quite a bit running some second side pick and roll stuff too. So I'm interested to see how that plays out as the year goes on.
The big key for him is defense. He needs to figure out to be able to hold up at the point of attack on ball so that teams just can't relentlessly attack him, especially in the Big 12, which is one of the most physical leagues in the country. Like a team like Texas with their guards, with Tyrese Hunter, with Marcus Carr, and then with someone like Timmy Allen, like they're going to try and get their man switched on to Gradey Dick, and they're just going to attack him. And Gradey needs to work really, really hard on that to bring that together. But if he does that, I think that he's going to have a real shot to be a one and done and be the kind of guy that I thought that he could be coming into the year, but scouts scared me up just in general. Like I need to stop listening to preseason scouts. I think is where I'm at. Like I need to stop listening to NBA people that go to these practices because moving to Duke now, another thing I'd kind of been told is like Kyle Filipowski didn't look very good. And Kyle Filipowski has been incredible. So
I thought he was the best player in the game tonight. Like even with
I thought he was too.
I thought it was him.
Just so aggressive, powerful, strong as a rebounder on the offensive end. He did a great job spacing the floor. I thought that he probably could have had 2 or 3 threes made in this game. I think he ended up only making 1, but he got open looks from 3 in a real way. Like I am much more intrigued by Kyle Filipowski after this game and after his start to the year, where he's the first Duke player to have 3 straight double-doubles than what I was told to anticipate coming into the year is maybe the way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, I think my bigger thing too was just his overall mobility. Like being a guy who's like a little bit more of a tweener at the 4-5. I looked at him more as like, okay, how is he going to look holding up in space? And I thought, not that it was perfect, but I thought he honestly had pretty good moments playing out in space and just overall help instincts and recovery ability. Again, not perfect, but it was in a lane where I was like, okay, that's not what I was expecting it to be this year in a positive way. So I was pleasantly surprised with that. But then you mentioned too, like his blend of physicality and fluidity is like, it's pretty breathtaking to watch. Like the way that he can go,
like he puts the ball on the ground, like he's real.
Yeah. He's really good, man. Like you mentioned too, I want to see more of what it can look like with him continuing to space the floor, especially once Tariq comes back. But that was a promising game, man. That was fun to watch.
Yeah, and speaking of Tariq, I think that this is the question that Duke fans are going to be asking the whole way, right? Does Tariq Whitehead, this is from Justin Burkholder in the comments, does Tariq Whitehead give Duke enough offense to compete with UNC and other top teams in the country? Possibly, yeah. I think that more than anything, almost what Tariq Whitehead does is he just gives Duke another player that opposing teams really have to pay attention to. Yeah. Like in this game tonight, it felt like it was a little bit too easy to hide a player on Mark Mitchell, right? Yeah. Or to hide someone on Derek Lively, frankly, at times. So yeah, like I think that just having another key option will be big for Duke.
Yeah, I honestly would almost go as far as saying, like, to me, Jeremy Roach and Tyrese Proctor are the 2 most important players for getting everything else unlocked. Because I think you saw when things were getting stifled with actually getting into the lane, it just makes it a lot harder to make everything else work for everyone else on the team. Like, I don't know where you were at with Lively tonight. Like, he had a nice short roll rep in the first half. But for the most part, it felt like he was just kind of in the dunker spot a lot. Which, I mean, I don't know, where were you at with him tonight?
So they ran a good amount of ball screens for him, I thought.
Yeah.
He rolled pretty hard, I thought, almost every time, or like rolled into the short roll area almost every time. I don't think he got fed on any of them, but what they did start to do, particularly with Tyrese Proctor started to really like honestly look at Derek Lively and force the tagger to come to him. And then he hit that cross corner kick out twice in the second half to generate open threes. So I think that like in that way, Tyrese Proctor honored the Derek Lively role, but at some point they're going to have to honor it to get lobs, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
in the first half, it was driving me nuts because they just wouldn't honor the role anytime. They weren't even like with Jeremy Roach. Like Jeremy Roach felt like wasn't even looking at him half the time.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think if they're gonna really generate rim pressure and collapse defenses in a way, because even like, I mean, they're making those kick out passes, but it never really felt like they were putting a ton of pressure on the rim outside of the actual roll gravity, and that's
or
half
offensive
measure.
rebounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Like,
it's just like I feel like we really need to see more from them in terms of getting that next level with the offense.
yeah, I totally agree with you. Um, yeah, really, really interesting team. What did you think of Proctor tonight? Let's, I guess that we can close there because on this game because Tyrese had an interesting one.
Yeah, I feel like he's somebody I definitely need to go back and rewatch this game for because that first half, like DeJuan Harris ate him alive
Yeah.
in the first half, like which to be fair, like DeJuan Harris is going to eat anybody alive this year. He's one of the best point of attack defenders in basketball, but really got up into his handle, just made him look very uncomfortable. But then in that second half, like I felt like he looked a lot more in control. He hit those couple pull-ups inside the arc and seemed to just kind of find comfort, get into his areas where he wanted to get. I didn't feel like I got the greatest feel for his passing tonight. So again, that's something I want to go back and watch more of. But I like it went from it flipped not fully like 180 flip, but I went from like beginning like this is the worst game possible for Tyrese Proctor. Like, okay, we're starting to see him get comfortable. So I liked seeing that from him.
Yeah, like Tyrese Proctor played, I thought, pretty outstanding in the second half.
Yeah.
Like I thought that across the board, he was just really good. His final line is still 9 points on 9 field goal attempts, 1 for 5 from 3, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 turnovers. Like, does that gives you an indication of how disastrous the first half was? It was a train wreck. And I think that that's a credit more to Kansas's defenders. I thought DeJuan Harris, you 100% nailed it. I thought he was outstanding in this game. He was cramping up the whole way. He did everything that Bill Self and in this case Norm Roberts. Bill Self, I think will be back next game if I remember correctly. They were everything that they could want. DeJuan Harris did. I will say, if Kevin McCullough is shooting threes. And he went 5 for 10 from the field tonight. He did have the 4 turnovers, but I thought a couple of those were like kind of a little bit messy. And then a couple were like not great calls where like maybe he got raked across the arms and could have got a foul called or something like that. 5 for 10 from the field, made 2 threes, killer defender, really had a ton of strips like on drives and then had the 2 blocks. Like, I don't know. This is a guy like I'm sneaky watching is like, okay, he does a lot that the NBA specifically looks for from its role playing wings. I wonder if he could sneak into the end of the first round by the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat too. I love Kevin McCullough. Like I could not say enough positive things about this dude. Like you mentioned, the defense, it's not just like he's a solid defender. Like he's off the ball. I thought he was tremendous tonight. On the ball, very good as well. His hands are really good. He can play anywhere on the court too. Like it's not just like he's best in one area. He handles well. Again, like you mentioned, it's going to be the shot, but like he has touch inside the arc too, which is what makes it interesting. Like it's not just okay if you run him off the line, you're fine. Like he's not necessarily he's not like a great above the rim athlete or anything, but like he's not to the same level we're talking about with Jalen being below the rim. I'm a Kevin McCullough believer. I think if any team has any belief in his shot, like that's a guy that I'm investing in as a rotation player for me.
Yeah, like I thought he was a two-way guy, even having the concerns about the shot going into last year. I don't see a world where he's not a two-way guy at the very least. It's just, okay, where does it go beyond that for me?